Have you ever heard of villages where the sun seems to never shine, where the whispers in the wind are said to be the voices of cursed souls? Somewhere in the world, and even in the remote corners of America, there are villages people dare not speak of. Places where the air feels heavier, the nights seem darker, and silence isn't a sign of peace, but a warning. Locals pass down chilling stories, the sound of footsteps echoing at night with no one in sight, shadowy figures lurking just beyond the tree line, and strange symbols carved into old forgotten walls. It's believed that evil once walked these lands, leaving behind more than just fear, but a lingering presence, a curse that never faded. Some of these villages now stand abandoned empty houses with shattered windows, overgrown paths swallowed by nature, and a stillness so deep it feels like the land itself is holding its breath. What happened in these places? Were they victims of mere misfortune, or did something far more sinister take root? Today we step into the mist of history to uncover the eerie tales of cursed villages. But remember, don't look behind you if you hear something strange. The first cursed village, Sanji, Taiwan. Nestled along the misty shores of Loch Tay, the abandoned village of Lars carries a chilling reputation that has lingered for centuries. Once a quiet settlement surrounded by rolling hills and the serene waters of the loch, Lars now stands as a ruin, its stone cottages crumbling and its history shrouded in fear and superstition. At the heart of Lor's dark legacy is the enigmatic figure of the Lady of Lors, a 17th century seer whose prophecies cast a long shadow over the village. She was said to possess an uncanny ability to foresee the future, and while some villagers respected her visions, others feared the strange power she seemed to wield. Among her most haunting predictions was the claim that Lars would fall when the branches of an ancient yew tree in the churchyard touched the ground. The yew tree was more than just a piece of local flora. It was a symbol of endurance and protection, deeply rooted in Scottish folklore. For years, the villagers kept a wary eye on the tree, watching as its branches slowly but steadily drooped closer to the earth. At first, it seemed like an old superstition, but as time wore on, a series of misfortunes struck Lors. Crops began to fail without explanation, blighted by a strange rot. Livestock fell ill and died in droves. Worse yet, a wave of unexplained illnesses spread among the villagers, leaving some bedridden and others lost to sudden and mysterious deaths. These events seemed to mirror the lady's words, deepening the villagers' belief that they were living under a curse. But the Lady of Lars' prophecies did not stop there. She also foretold the arrival of boats that would cross Loch Tay without the use of sails or oars. At the time, such an idea was absurd. The only vessels known to the villagers were simple rowboats or sailboats. However, decades later, with the advent of steam-powered boats, her words appeared to come true, adding an eerie sense of validation to her predictions. As fear tightened its grip on Lors, whispers began to spread, not just about the lady's prophecies, but about her ghost. It was said that her spirit lingered in the village long after her death, haunting the ruins of her former home. Some claimed to see a shadowy figure drifting between the crumbling houses or standing silently by the loch's edge. Others reported hearing disembodied whispers carried by the wind, words too faint to understand, but chilling enough to send shivers down their spines. Travelers passing through Lors often spoke of an unshakable feeling of being watched, as though unseen eyes followed their every move. A few even claimed to hear footsteps crunching on gravel behind them, only to turn and find no one there. These unsettling encounters reinforced the village's reputation as a place forsaken by both man and nature. The final blow came when the ancient yew tree, its branches now touching the ground as the lady had predicted, finally fell. For the remaining villagers, this was the ultimate sign that Lors was doomed. They abandoned their homes, leaving the village to decay in silence. Whether driven by supernatural fear or a psychological descent into panic, their departure sealed Lors' fate. Today, the ruins of Lars stand as a grim reminder of the lady's prophecies and the devastating power of fear. The stone skeletons of houses lie cloaked in ivy, and the churchyard, once the resting place of the fateful yew tree, remains eerily quiet. Visitors to the site still speak of an unsettling atmosphere, as though the lady's spirit continues to linger, forever bound to the land she once warned about. The story of Lars forces us to question the thin line between prophecy and coincidence, between fear and reality. Were the lady's predictions truly supernatural insights, or did they simply plant a seed of dread that grew into a self-fulfilling curse? One thing remains certain. The village of Lars will always be a place of unease, where the past feels dangerously close to the present and unanswered questions echo through the ruins. The second cursed village, Joer Verde, Brazil. Joer Verde is a name that echoes through the corridors of urban legend, a small village in Brazil that allegedly vanished without a trace. According to the chilling tale, in 1923, the entire population of 600 people disappeared overnight, leaving behind a scene frozen in time. Tables were set for meals that were never eaten, chairs were toppled over, and personal belongings lay scattered about as though the villagers had fled in a blind panic. The most haunting detail, however, was a message scrawled on a chalkboard inside the local school. There is no salvation. Theories about what happened to Joer Verde have swirled for decades. Some believe that the village fell victim to a mass abduction, not by human hands, but by extraterrestrial forces. Witnesses from nearby areas spoke of strange lights in the sky and an unnatural silence that settled over the village before the disappearance. Others claim that the villagers were victims of a deadly curse, tied to ancient indigenous lore about spirits that punish those who disturb sacred lands. Another popular theory suggests that the villagers were caught in the crossfire of political conflict. In the early 20th century, Brazil faced a wave of violence linked to guerrilla warfare, and some speculate that Joer Verde's population may have been slaughtered or forced to flee by warring factions. Yet the lack of any bodies or signs of struggle complicates this explanation. To add another layer of mystery, some explorers who visited the site reported an overwhelming sense of dread and disorientation. They described hearing whispers carried by the wind, despite the village being completely abandoned. Shadows seemed to move at the edges of their vision, and the oppressive silence weighed down on them like an unseen force. The more they lingered, the more it felt like the village itself was alive, watching, waiting. Skeptics argue that Joer Verde's story is nothing more than an elaborate hoax, a myth that grew larger with each retelling. Official records about the village are scarce, leading some to question whether Joer Verde ever existed at all. Still, for those who believe, the legend endures, a grim reminder of how quickly an entire community can slip into oblivion, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a lingering sense of fear. What could have driven 600 people to abandon their homes so suddenly? Was it a human threat, a supernatural curse, or something even more unexplainable? Joer Verde remains a dark enigma, its secrets lost to time, but its story continues to haunt those who dare to look too closely. The third cursed village, Kuldhara, India. Kuldhara is an ancient village in the Indian state of Rajasthan, shrouded in mystery and chilling tales of a mass disappearance. Established in the 13th century by the prosperous Paliwal Brahmins, Kuldhara was once a thriving settlement known for its advanced agricultural practices and strong sense of community. However, in the early 19th century, something inexplicable happened. The entire population of Kuldhara, along with residents from 83 neighboring villages, vanished overnight, leaving behind an abandoned ghost town. Legend has it that the downfall of Kuldhara began with the sinister intentions of Salim Singh, a powerful and ruthless minister of the region. Singh became infatuated with the daughter of the village chief and demanded her hand in marriage, threatening to impose unbearable taxes on Kuldhara if his proposal was denied. Fearing for their safety and unwilling to bow to Singh's tyranny, the villagers devised a daring plan. Rather than submitting to the minister's demands, the villagers chose to abandon their homes and lives. In the dead of night, they fled in silence, leaving no trace of their destination. But before they departed, the villagers are said to have placed a curse on Kuldhara, vowing that no one would ever be able to settle there again. True to their word, despite numerous attempts over the years, the village has remained uninhabited to this day. What adds to the spine-chilling atmosphere of Kuldhara are the eerie remnants of its past. Crumbling sandstone houses line the deserted streets, frozen in time. Personal belongings were left behind, as if the villagers had planned a sudden and urgent escape. Some houses still have partially collapsed walls, as though an invisible force continues to gnaw at the village's foundations. Tourists and paranormal investigators alike have reported unsettling experiences while exploring Kuldhara. Many speak of an unshakable feeling of being watched, with some claiming to hear faint whispers in the wind. Shadows are said to flit across the ruined houses, and inexplicable cold spots appear even in the blistering Rajasthan heat. A few visitors have even reported a strange heaviness in the air, as though the sorrow and fear of the villagers still linger, refusing to be forgotten. Scientists and historians have attempted to explain the mass exodus with more logical theories. Some suggest that dwindling water supplies or a sudden economic collapse might have forced the Paliwal Brahmins to abandon Kuldhara. Others point to the fear of invasions or local conflicts as a plausible reason. However, none of these explanations fully account for the villagers' mysterious disappearance without a trace, nor the persistent curse that seems to repel all who dare to settle in the village. To this day, Kuldhara stands as a haunting testament to the villagers' defiance and the dark legacy they left behind. The empty homes, silent streets, and inexplicable aura of fear make it one of India's most notorious cursed villages. Whether one believes in the supernatural or not, the story of Kuldhara remains an unsettling reminder of the village's tragic fate and the curse that keeps it frozen in time. The fourth cursed village, Bannerman's Island, USA. Bannerman's Island, also known as Palapel Island, sits quietly on the Hudson River in New York, a seemingly serene spot with a dark and mysterious past. At first glance, the island's crumbling castle looks like something from a medieval fairy tale, but the reality behind its history is far more sinister. The island gained its notorious reputation when Frank Bannerman VI purchased it in 1900 to store his massive collection of military surplus, including weapons, ammunition, and explosives. He constructed a grand castle-style arsenal to house his dangerous stockpile, but almost immediately, the island's unsettling history began to unfold. Local legends speak of Palapel Island being cursed long before Bannerman's arrival. Indigenous tribes were said to have avoided the island, believing it was haunted by malevolent spirits. Early Dutch settlers also reported strange occurrences, sudden, fierce storms that seemed to rise from nowhere when boats neared the island, and inexplicable noises echoing from the dense woods. But the true terror began after the castle was built. In 1920, a massive explosion, caused by the volatile munitions stored within the fortress, rocked the island, destroying much of the castle and spreading fear throughout the surrounding towns. Witnesses on the mainland recalled seeing a giant fireball rise above the Hudson River, and the sound of the blast was said to have been heard from miles away. The explosion killed several workers and left the ruins that still stand today. After the explosion, locals reported eerie lights flickering among the castle's remains at night. Boaters spoke of hearing distant gunfire and disembodied voices when passing by the island, as if the ghosts of those lost in the blast were still guarding the munitions. Some even claimed to have seen shadowy figures patrolling the castle's crumbling towers, spirits of soldiers forever tied to the weapons they once protected. Adding to the fear, visitors who dared step foot on the island often described an overwhelming sense of dread. Cameras would malfunction without explanation, and sudden cold spots would appear, even in the height of summer. Urban explorers reported hearing whispered warnings, faint but unmistakable, urging them to leave. Despite its haunting reputation, Bannerman's Island has become a popular spot for ghost hunters and history enthusiasts. The castle's ruins stand as a grim reminder of the explosion and the legends of the curse that have gripped the area for centuries. Was it simply an accident that destroyed the fortress, or was the island's dark curse at play? To this day, the truth remains shrouded in mystery, and the island's restless spirits seem determined to keep their secrets buried along the banks of the Hudson. The fifth cursed village, Lars, Scotland. Hidden along the shores of Loch Tay in Scotland lies the abandoned village of Lars, a place steeped in legend, mystery, and a chilling curse that has echoed through time. Though the village now lies in ruins, its dark past and the supernatural events tied to it have kept its story alive. The most infamous figure tied to Lours is the Lady of Lours, a 17th century seer known for her unsettling prophecies. She was said to have an uncanny ability to predict future events with terrifying accuracy, and her warnings often spoke of death and destruction. It is her curse that many believe doomed the village. One of her most famous prophecies was tied to the churchyard yew tree in Lours. She declared that the village would fall when the tree's branches touched the ground, a seemingly harmless prediction at the time. However, as the centuries passed, villagers watched with growing fear as the tree's branches gradually drooped closer to the earth. True to her words, Lours began to suffer misfortune after misfortune. Crop failures, strange illnesses, and inexplicable deaths plagued the villagers. The Lady of Lours also predicted that boats would one day be pulled across Loch Tay without the need for oars or sails, a vision many dismissed as nonsense. However, centuries later, the arrival of steam-powered boats made her prediction come true, further solidifying her reputation as a woman both gifted and cursed. As fear of the lady's prophecies grew, the villagers began to abandon Lours. Some believed that the land itself had become tainted by her dark visions. Others spoke of seeing her ghost wandering the ruins, her ethereal figure draped in a long cloak, silently watching those who dared to step onto the cursed ground. Even after the village was deserted, Lours' sinister reputation only deepened. Travelers passing through the area reported strange occurrences, disembodied whispers echoing through the empty streets, the feeling of unseen eyes following their every move, and sudden, unexplainable drops in temperature. The churchyard yew tree, once at the heart of the lady's prophecy, eventually fell, and with it, the last hope for the village's revival seemed to vanish. Today, Lours remains a desolate place, its crumbling ruins a silent testament to the lady's curse. Was Lours truly doomed by the supernatural, or did fear and superstition drive its people away? The line between legend and reality blurs in this forgotten village, leaving behind an unsettling legacy that still haunts the shores of Loch Tay. These 5 cursed villages each hold their own dark secrets, their empty streets and crumbling buildings whispering stories of fear, tragedy, and the unknown. Whether abandoned due to natural disasters, inexplicable events, or ancient curses, they serve as eerie reminders of how legends can shape the fate of entire communities. But what truly makes these villages so haunting isn't just the ghostly apparitions or the chilling prophecies. It's the unsettling idea that fear itself may have been the most powerful force at work. The belief in curses, the dread of unexplainable events, and the weight of superstition might have pushed these villagers to the brink, leaving their homes behind to be swallowed by time. As we explore these cursed places, one question lingers. Are these villages abandoned because of something otherworldly? Or did the real horror come from within? Perhaps the most terrifying curses are the ones we create for ourselves, fueled by fear and passed down through generations. So the next time you find yourself in an old empty town, with the wind howling through forgotten streets, ask yourself, is it truly deserted, or are the ghosts of its past still watching from the shadows? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed diving into these haunting stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any future mysteries. Your support keeps these legends alive, and who knows what cursed tale we'll uncover next. Until then, stay curious, and maybe keep a light on tonight.